Welcome back to Two Guys, One Mic. We are 6 hours Eastern time away from the first game of Week 1 in the college football season, Florida, Utah. I'm Connor Bailey.
I'm Cannon Gerald.
And we're just going to jump straight into Week 0 here. Week 0 recap. So, two big matchups we talked about in Week 0 with Southern Cal and Notre Dame. Let's talk about Southern Cal real quick. Caleb Williams, Zachariah Branch, they looked electric.
Yeah, Zachariah Branch looks like the next coming of Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
In a sense, he looks like he's going to make his case for Freshman of the Year.
Yeah.
I was getting texts during the game, after the game. It was just like, who is this Branch guy from my dad?
Yeah.
And I honestly wasn't too high on him either. You know, he was a guy that I obviously knew about, but I didn't really pay much attention to. But after that performance, I think he solidified his name.
He's the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caleb Williams, I mean, it's too early for Heisman talk, but he did
Caleb
Heisman
Williams
plays.
things.
Yeah.
I think overall, I don't know how you kind of take USC's game against San Jose State. I'm not going to penalize them too much because it is, first game after a 3-4 month dead period coming after a loss to Tulane. But the defense is concerning.
I will say a comment about the defense. I didn't know this because, the Pac-12 in their last season, we couldn't even watch the first game of the Pac-12. But I was listening to Josh Pate, and he was talking about the defense for Southern Cal. They played 22 guys on defense.
Wow.
They were basically treating that like a scrimmage.
Yeah.
I doubt when they play Utah, they're going to play 22 guys on defense.
Exactly. I didn't know that either, which is a little bit, from an offensive point of things, with Lincoln Riley as your head coach, Caleb Williams as your quarterback, guys like Branch as your receivers.
Yeah.
They seem to fire on all cylinders. They took care of business. A little bit of a slow start that you're not going to want to get into when you get into conference play. But
right.
Overall, I think they're fine.
I think if they give up 28 points a game, they'll probably go undefeated.
Yeah,
I don't think
I would agree.
Yeah.
I kind of have, I don't know how much your opinion of USC has changed with that Week 0 game. Mine pretty much stays the same. I think they're a team that can compete nationally for a championship.
A lot's just going to have to go right.
Yeah, I agree.
Notre Dame, I think that was the story of Week 0. Sam Hartman, man, he led that offense in a way a quarterback has not led that offense in a long time. I don't even know what quarterback to mention. I would say Ian Book, but it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Notre Dame tried to hire Andy Ludwig at OC this offseason, and the AD shot them down, so they had to promote from within. That was my big question with Notre Dame. It wasn't whether Sam Hartman would be good or not. I figured he'd make enough plays. That offense looked smooth. I know it was Navy, but they ran the ball at will.
Yeah, that's the big thing is Sam Hartman throwing 4 touchdowns is obviously going to be the first thing that lights it up. And watching the game too, I mean, that offense again just seemed to fire on all cylinders. But that offensive line mixed with the 2 running backs, it looked deadly. You
cannot hit that dude one time and expect him to go down. You have to wrap him up.
Kind of a Week 0 kind of gave me very much hope for Notre Dame, and then not as much hope for USC, but kind of, same continuing. I think that it's good that Notre Dame looks so good, especially against a team like Navy. I don't think anyone seriously expected Navy to put up much of a fight.
Last year they won 35-32.
Exactly. That's a lot of improvement. Navy tried to pass, didn't really work out. They didn't score till the fourth quarter. Notre Dame dominated that entire game, which I feel like we haven't seen out of a Notre Dame team since, obviously the Clemson games where they've won in the past, but it was kind of refreshing to see Notre Dame come out and take care of business like they should.
That Week 4 game against Ohio State at home, is looking like a premier game. If it wasn't already, it is looking like one now. Those are the only 2 games for Week 0. Couple of pre-Week 1 comments we like to make. Colorado, Deion Sanders, they play this week, but before we talk about that game, we're going to talk about some comments Deion Sanders made recently on an ESPN article about his overhaul. It was about team culture. And basically, to sum it up, he said, culture in the locker room doesn't matter, it just takes talent. I liked what you said about his time at Florida State and coming from the NFL. I'll let you kind of lead off with that.
Yeah, so basically, as successful as I think Deion's going to be,
right.
He still doesn't have experience in college football from a coaching point of view. Even, when he played at Florida State in the 90s, college football was not in a weird spot, but in a spot yet where dynasties really didn't have a lot of control. Obviously, the early 2000s, Miami started, I don't want to say started that trend, but made it more normal for teams to win multiple national championships.
Mm-hmm.
And with Deion's case, I think he's right in every situation except for college football.
Yeah.
College, and I like what you said yesterday, you know what I mean? College football can win you the national championship, but culture is how you get there, and that's just 100% right.
We saw talent win the national championship this past year, but culture got TCU there.
Yeah.
Because TCU was the less talented team, maybe 50% of their matchups this year, and they found ways to win.
The only real situation that I can think of where talent won a national championship was LSU and Joe Burrow, just because that was probably the most talented offensive, defensive rosters put together. But you still have to think, Ed Orgeron's not a coach that just goes there and coaches ballers. He's a straight coach's guy. He's not an X's and O. Not to mention you're already at an established program with a winning culture like LSU. I think Deion will be successful at Colorado in terms of how he does first 2 seasons. We'll touch on to it a little bit more against TCU. I mean, we've talked about it. 5-6 wins for Colorado is a major.
4 wins is a
major win for the program this season. But I just think Deion is going to have to understand that he's right. Talent is how you win games. But
culture is how you get to the big one.
And
culture is how when you're down by 12 heading into the fourth quarter and you've turned the ball over 4 times and you're on the road against a 4-5 team in week 9. That's how culture's how you win that game. And you see that with programs like Clemson.
Some of the most talented players can be like the biggest babies, the biggest, this didn't go my way, so I'm going to react how I want to react, not really about a team. And that's what really worries me about Colorado and Deion's comments. I'm kind of worried that they're not really going to be as team-oriented. Well, they're not really going to be as team-oriented. And like I said, you can't win in college football. You're talking about 15 straight weeks of battling, going, home, away.
Especially with Colorado's schedule.
It's just too brutal to not believe in culture. And it kind of honestly surprised me coming from Deion, because Deion seemed to be a guy that, really wants his team to go to battle against each other. At least at Jacksonville State he did. So the comments kind of came out of nowhere, in my opinion.
I agree.
Disappointing. I think he'll realize soon enough that some of the aspects of winning that he may not have credited to culture, he'll start to. It just really boils down to you can't win in this league with just straight talent alone.
I think about, what if Colorado starts out 0-4? What happens to that talent? And they've got some talent there. What happens, when they start out 0-4?
The scary thing to think about with Colorado, a team that primarily is brand new in every single aspect.
A completely new roster.
You threw out the 0-4 scenario. What happens when the guys that transferred in are now looking to transfer out? I just think it's a very scary situation that Deion's kind of going to have to make sure the team's a team.
Moving on, so kind of a little preview into one of the games this week, UNC South Carolina. We still have no idea if Devontae Walker will be playing Saturday or if he'll be playing at all this season. This is his 4th school, but this is only the 2nd school that he will step on the football field for. He got injured 1 year, didn't play. COVID year took him out for another year. He blew up last year at Kent State. They applied for a waiver, still no word. They applied for a waiver a month ago and still no word. The NCAA,
it's a joke.
It's a joke. They repeatedly just trash athletes. I know we're probably not going to get a bunch of traction on this video, but it's just embarrassing. It needs to be talked about how poorly the NCAA treats athletes. And that's their primary job, is to protect the athlete, the student athlete. And there's just, this guy was getting first-round pick talk, borderline first-round pick talk, and now he's not even going to be able to play, most likely.
For the NCAA to be a nonprofit, is it a nonprofit? I'm pretty sure the NCAA is a nonprofit organization. This whole transfer window needing the NCAA's approval, it's understandable, but I think the problem is that it's not consistent.
And what's crazy is they passed the rule that prevents him from playing after he had already transferred.
Which makes no sense.
And then they're now applying it to him.
That should just negate everything completely.
It's insanity. The NCAA should be embarrassed. And, a lot of people think that the SEC and Big Ten will eventually just kind of pull away. This will be why.
I agree.
Embarrassment like this.
The NCAA is kind of really doing nothing now except for making a lot of people's lives harder for no reason. There's no consistency with the rules at all whatsoever. It's just kind of embarrassing. You can even go back to what they did with Harborough, how they, what I mean? That's just something that I don't understand. How can the NCAA come out and say that they're suspending Harborough for 4 games, and then Jim Harbaugh is going to come out himself and say that he's going to take him a 3-game
suspension? There's just no leadership at the top, and it needs to change. It needs to change quickly. Another little negative segment here, Virginia Tech. We got to talk about them. They are bottom 4 in the odds in the ACC, I believe. And quite frankly, there's just no excuse for it. A program that had Frank Beamer and Michael Vick, they're in Virginia, which, the DMV area is just one of the most ripe high school, loaded with talent across the board. They can tap into North Carolina. They have the ability to tap into Georgia. They have a big enough brand.
That's what I was going to say. The most pathetic thing about Virginia Tech is you probably have a top 3 most passionate fan base.
Yeah.
And most sports, not just football, but especially football, you have a top 3 tradition in the inner Sandman. It's just kind of like the athletic department hasn't really given the same careful consideration to maybe coaching hires and how they've been developing the program as the fans and the school deserve.
Yep.
There's no reason that Virginia Tech has not been competing for ACC championships in the past 5 to 10 years consistently.
Especially with how bad the Coastal.
Exactly. They should be running the Coastal, you know what I mean? They kind of gave it up, their in-state rivals. Virginia won it one year, Pitt won it a couple years. Yeah. I just think that should have been Virginia Tech's bread and butter.
I agree. And I look at their staff now, and it's no disrespect to that staff, but I don't think they have what it takes to get Virginia Tech back either.
I don't either.
And, ACC jobs for some of these middle-of-the-pack schools right now, they're probably going to be hard to keep good coaches at, because then the Big Ten and SEC are going to come knocking. But there's no reason Virginia Tech can't go be aggressive and get a name. So week 1 picks now. We're going to talk about a couple games. Then we're just going to give some picks for some games, and then we're going to go a little bit more in depth about some of the bigger games of the week. A couple of notable games to watch that we're not really going to talk about. UCLA plays Coastal. Be interesting to see what their offense looks like without Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Should be interesting to see if Grayson McCall can also have sort of like a bounce back year. Yeah. He was getting a lot of attention for a guy out of a Group of 5 school, and then last year he almost had a disappointing year. I think a bunch of people kind of expect him to maybe go to the draft.
Yeah. He tried to transfer.
Should be interesting.
Couldn't get credits to transfer, something like that.
He's just a big football guy. So
he's just there for football.
Yeah, no classes, no anything like that. Grayson McCall is just there for football. So
another game, Louisville, Georgia Tech. That's a pretty underrated game for the ACC this year. It's a big year for Jeff Brahms, his first year here. I think they have 20 new transfers. They'll have 5 or 6 new starters, maybe on both sides of the ball. New QB. Georgia Tech, they hired their interim head coach from last year.
Good hire.
Yeah, I like that hire a lot. I do. Can they, pull off a week 1 upset? Oregon State, San Jose State. We get to see DJ.
We get to see DJ against the exact same defense that Caleb Williams just played.
Yep.
So I think this game can be very telling because USC plays Oregon State later in the year. If we get a DJ that looks poised and comfortable back there, and they put up 50+ points on a San Jose State team.
Yep.
I just think it could.
Spoiler alert. I think DJ's going to look really good.
I do too.
I hope he looks really good.
I do too.
So going into some picks here now. Virginia, Tennessee, a 12 o'clock game. I think this is a pretty easy pick.
Yeah, Tennessee.
Yeah, Joe Milton's debut. Well, not debut.
Debut as a starter in the regular season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At Tennessee.
So I'm excited to see that. See what Josh Heupel year 3
I kind of expect Tennessee to get off to a slow start.
I'm not against that prediction
I think
at
this game might be. I don't necessarily think it'll be close because I don't know how much Virginia is going to be able to get done offensively.
Yeah.
But
I fully expect Tennessee to cover.
Yeah, 100%. But I wouldn't be surprised if the score of this game, maybe going into halftime, is 17-3, 17-7.
Yeah.
Something a little bit closer than you might expect.
Take a little bit of time to get going. Boise State, Washington. I'm going Washington here.
Yeah, I'm also going Washington.
I think this is a trap game for Washington.
It definitely is.
Yeah. They lose their starting running back last week. Mm-hmm. We talked about Boise State in the G5 video. Taylon Green is a very legit QB, probably the best sophomore QB in the country, at least right now on preseason floor. It's a big game for Washington because, Boise State's one of those teams that's kind of like a Power 5 team almost.
Yeah.
They always win big games. And it's an important game for Michael Penix to get started off hot with and get that offense rolling. And we get to see how much defensively they've improved, which is going to be what decides Washington's season. Another one, UTSA and Houston.
This is an interesting game.
I think it's a really good game.
really. I think I'm going to go with UTSA here.
I'm going with UTSA as well.
I usually don't like betting against Houston, especially in games like this, but for their first year in the Big 12, I think it's pretty much understood Houston's kind of going to have a rebuilding year.
Yeah.
UTSA is coming off of the best season in program history.
Yeah.
I expect them to kind of ride that high out, beat in-state rivals. I don't know if they're really a rival, but I can imagine if I played in the state of Texas, I wouldn't like most other teams that played in Texas.
Yeah. Frank Harris, year 7 now. I think he gets the job done. Last game we're going to kind of just briefly mention here, Colorado TCU. There's a lot to talk about, but for me, I think I did kind of flip back and forth on this. I think TCU wins, and I don't think they just win. I think they cover, and it's a 20.5 point spread. I fully expect TCU to win by 3 touchdowns, maybe more.
Yeah, I was kind of buying into the Deion hype a little bit. You see this game matched up, you think, why not? This is another game that I think has the potential to be close soon. I've been kind of thinking about it more. I think TCU's a more established program. Sonny Dykes is a more established coach. Regardless of what happened in the national championship last year, they definitely won't be as good as they were last year, but there's no reason why they shouldn't win. I think I'm looking at it now. They are minus 1,000 moneyline favorites. They have no excuse to come out here and not cover. I think that what scares me is I think TCU, actually to contradict myself, might start off a little hot. I expect Colorado to struggle early. I really do. But I think the key for Colorado to staying in this game is to go into halftime down by no more than 10 points. I think if Colorado can come into the second half only down 10-ish, it'll give them the motivation they need. I expect TCU to kind of do what they want at will.
Yeah.
But I think it could be interesting. I don't think it's going to be. It could be. I think I'm going to agree with you that TCU most likely covers.
Yeah, I think they did what they could to replace Garrett Riley, bringing in Kendall Briles. We got to remember their QB this year was the starter last year before he got hurt. They did a good job in the portal of replacing the talent that they lost. I mean, you can only replace so much of that. But I think Sonny Dykes, kind of like what we talked about earlier, is a big culture guy. I think he's going to have them in a culture that's they feel a lot of disrespect. They got blown out in the national championship, and they're in nobody's predictions to even make the Big 12 championship game. So I think they end up winning. I think they win big. Big game tonight though. This episode will be dropping shortly before Florida Utah, and some big news broke earlier this week. Cam Rising, QB, still not expected to play, and their starting tight end is not expected to play as well. We're looking at a potential 0-star recruit starting at quarterback for the Utah Utes.
I didn't know it was a 0-star recruit.
So with that in mind, I'm definitely going Florida to win.
I think I'm going Florida too.
Yeah.
I've kind of thought Florida this whole week, even before I heard the Cam Rising news. I just think it's a very Florida-esque game to win. You know, they definitely shouldn't have beaten Utah last year, week 1. It's a game where I feel like the SEC team is going to come out more motivated because they've probably been ready to play football more.
Yeah.
It'll be a tough game on the road.
I think you got two teams who think they're more physical than each other. I think that makes for great football. I expect the Florida run game to lead the Florida offense, and I think Graham Mertz, I think he completely flips his narrative. I don't think he's going to throw for 350 yards, 5 touchdowns.
He might throw for over 180, though.
He might throw for 100. I hope not. I hope he throws for 183. But, I think Graham Mertz is going to look a lot better. I'm worried about the receiving core for Florida.
Definitely.
But I think Billy Napier's fired up. I think he knows he has to be fired up, and I think he's going to have his team fired up.
I think this is a game. This is a game where you can expect the ball to be ran a lot.
Yeah.
The entire game, both sides.
I think it's a very gritty, physical game we're going to get to watch tonight.
We should see Trevor Etienne have a game if he wants to. I mean, I feel like any game where his impact will matter the most, it'll probably be right here, start the season out, give Graham Mertz a little bit of comfort, and that's kind of what I think happens. I think Florida will open this game up, running the ball, let Graham Mertz kind of get comfortable a little bit, and then he'll steal the show. Yeah,
I'm worried about Utah. They have a brutal start to this season. They go to Baylor next week. So it doesn't get any easier. And, if Cam Ryan's not playing this week, when does he come back? Next game we're going to talk about is West Virginia, Penn State, Saturday night prime time.
Game that I would kill to be at.
Yeah, I would love to be there as well. Kind of bringing back an old rivalry that people forget on. By no means am I picking West Virginia to win. Penn State's going to win this game
by a lot of points.
There's two things West Virginia has to do or rely on to win this game, and that's use their offensive line to their advantage. I think Penn State's biggest weakness is their run defense. West Virginia should have a good offensive line. They got to get pushed in the interior, and I don't think they run the ball on the outside. Penn State has too much talent and speed at linebacker.
Yeah.
Other thing is, I think they have to rely on an underperformance out of the Penn State receiving corps, which I could see in week 1.
I think West Virginia could get lucky with the slow start from Drew Allard.
Yeah,
too.
I agree with that. Most of their receivers are transfers or guys who are making their first start for the Penn State. So that's a big thing to watch, and you got to have an overperformance out of West Virginia's DB group as well. But I think Penn State's going to cover that game.
I do agree. Think Penn State will cover.
Yeah. Next game is Clemson-Duke. It's Monday night. I hate the Monday night games.
I do too. Second year in a row we've had one on Labor Day.
And it gets worse every year. The lines are moving in Duke's favor.
They are.
I think Clemson runs away with it. I know we've talked about slow starts, hot starts. I don't think Clemson has either. I think they just do what Notre Dame does and
just pound the whole game.
Yeah.
One speed.
Yeah.
I agree. I think this is a game that obviously I'm wearing a Duke sweatshirt now. I'm gonna pick Clemson for this game, and I'm gonna also pick them to cover. I'm not sure what it's set at, just because, like Connor said, it's been moving so much. It's kind of been hovering around that 13, going back down to 12.5, 12-ish area. I think Clemson wins by 2 touchdowns. 38-24 if I had to do a score prediction. I just think that even if Cade Klubnik isn't 100% ready, I think he has the roster, the coaching staff, the opponent to afford it.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for what Riley Leonard and Mike Elko and the Duke football team did last year. I don't think it'll be a 14-point game. I think the game will be over by halftime. I think Cade will be ready. Obviously, Garrett Riley's going to be ready. I think that defense is going to be ready. I think Will Shipley and Phil Moffitt are going to be ready. I think there's going to be, I don't know what we see from the Clemson offense in terms of explosiveness. I do think we see a much more fluid offense.
I would have to agree with that. One thing that I'm looking for with the game Monday night is effort by the Clemson receivers. I feel like last time, a lot of the time last year, receivers didn't do a very good job getting open and stuff like that. I feel like the receivers have taken the majority of the offseason being, criticized in a national scope, and I hope that they kind of just take that on their sleeve and just go out and ball. As a fan, I'm not really nervous. As a spectator of the ACC, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think that Duke should have a pretty good season impact. I think they had a 9-win season they're following up on. I think it'll be a great game, and I'm excited for it to come back.
Yeah, I'm excited for it as well. Clemson's rivals play Saturday, North Carolina and South Carolina. This was a tough game for me to pick, but the more I look into it, the more I think South Carolina is going to run away with it.
Yeah, this is a flip of the coin kind of game. I was kind of explaining this to Connor yesterday. The more I look at it, too, the less and less and less I love North Carolina. I think North Carolina has every capability to win this game. I think if they do win this game, they won't win it by a big margin.
Yeah.
And then on the contrary, I think if South Carolina wins this game,
I think it's double digits.
I think it's a big margin as well.
Yeah.
As much as I could see this game going down to a Drake May 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, going and getting that go-ahead touchdown, I can see Carolina going out there and blowing them out.
Yeah, I don't think North Carolina has the receivers to do it. They lose their top 2 from last year. Devontae Walker's most likely not playing. They lose their OC. They're going to start running the ball more. I don't think they have the running backs to do it. You were telling me this yesterday. Drake May led the team in rushing last year. Their quarterback led the team in rushing, and that's never a good sign. I don't think their defense got any better. People say it did from inside North Carolina's program. I'll see it, or I'll believe it when I see it.
And this is kind of just a South Carolina team that seems like they want it more than anyone else in the country.
They're hot. Yeah.
They have every reason to be excited about it. They've made nothing but improvements besides losing a couple guys like Jaheim Bell, Marshawn Lloyd in the transfer portal. But
they replaced those guys.
Seems like they've replaced them pretty well. I think it should be an exciting game for both teams. I think both teams have a lot more riding on it than they thought. That first game of the season is kind of very easy to overlook and look at the rest of your season. But I think for South Carolina especially, this is a big game for their season. I really think it could be the difference of them starting the season 3-2, potentially 4-1 upset watch week 3 in Athens versus 1-4.
Yeah,
I really do because they lose a game like North Carolina.
This is a massive game for South Carolina.
I agree.
I think Spencer Rattler plays good. hopefully we see some Lenore's or Sellers action as well.
Another thing to notice, though, with these teams played 2 years ago in a bowl game, not that far ago. Beamer's first year as the head coach, he won they won the Duke's Mayo Bowl versus
Sam Howell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can use the argument that it's not Drake May playing, and I'm not sure if Sam Howell played in that bowl game since it was a bowl game in probably his draft year.
Yeah.
But that was a team that was used to having a quarterback like Sam Howell, so
I think finish.
No, go ahead.
I think kind of going back on that, we look back at North Carolina last year and think they were just some offensively dominant team.
Yep.
The last 6 weeks of the season, they were far from it. They averaged, I think, like 25 points a game.
Yep.
They lost to Georgia Tech, and their defense held Georgia Tech to 21. If you had told me last year through the first 6 weeks of the season that Georgia Tech scored 21 points against North Carolina and won,
0% chance.
I would have believed you. So I think their offense got worse too.
And that's another thing is like their offense scored a lot of points. It never seemed like they were just that talented and that unstoppable.
Right.
When they scored, over 60 points, the one that I can really remember was against App State, and that's just back against the wall scratching for anything. Offensive players making plays when they need plays, and I don't know if Mac Brown has the culture at North Carolina set up to where they will almost have that mentality before it's too late.
I agree.
And against a team like South Carolina, I don't think you can go down 14 points and then all of a sudden flip that switch where your offense is unstoppable.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Nicholas Harbor play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where he'll be used. I imagine he'll be good wherever he is used. But, yeah, I really like what you said. This is a massive game for South Carolina. Their first 5 weeks of the season, obviously it impacts the rest of their season, but they could go 4-1 or they could go 1-4.
Exactly.
And I think it kind of rides on this game.
I'm gonna go North Carolina. I don't think I ever said it. I think I am gonna go North Carolina still. I trust Mac Brown to maybe have the team. I think Beamer's a very late season guy. I think he has the ability to get his team to full potential, but I don't know if he has the ability to get his team to full potential at the start. I don't know if you saw any of the press conferences Beamer's held this past week, but he's basically been very, very, I don't want to say vulgar, but just upfront with the media, how his team's been playing in practice. He's been telling his players every day if they play like how they're playing in practice, they will lose the game. And he seems serious when he's saying it. So just hope for a good game. But I do think North Carolina will win.
All right. So, one of us will have a loss in that column.
Yep.
Game of the week, Sunday night, rematch of last year's Week 1 matchup. This time it's in Orlando, I believe. It's Florida State Seminoles and LSU Tigers.
But more importantly, it's the real Cheez-It Bowl.
Yeah, the 2 Cheez-It Bowl winners.
Yeah, 2 Cheez-It Bowl winners finally going to figure out who's the cheesiest. And every day it's looking more like Florida State.
Yeah, I think Florida State's going to have this game.
Yeah, kind of hasn't really, unfortunately, this past 2 weeks, Florida State's looked like the better team, but nothing for what they're doing. LSU just keeps getting hit with players out, and I think it's just going to be too much to overcome for Jaden Daniels by himself.
Yeah, star defensive lineman suspended, actually.
1 game.
Apparently he was injured, too. He went out the first quarter last year, and to me that was a game-changing moment because Florida State's offense finally started to show some signs of life. LSU starting running back also out. Malik Neighbors is a really good wide receiver. I think Jaden Daniels is a really good QB. I think the question mark for LSU is the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're telling me they got to match up with, I think they added 4 transfers in the portal this year, and they got to match up against 3, 6, 7 playmakers in Florida State's passing attack. I don't think they can do it.
I don't think they can either. We talked a lot about this beforehand, but I think the LSU hype is getting kind of out of hand.
Yeah.
In a sense, I know what you were saying where you feel like people are being too critical. If it's not SEC championship, then it's a busted season.
Yeah.
But I feel like everywhere I've seen they have LSU or nothing. I think it's kind of ridiculous that people are saying that this LSU team is all in or nothing. Again, like you said, I mean, this is a team that 2 years ago won 4 games.
Yeah. Last year, some people said they weren't going to make a bowl with Brian Kelly. And I think that's a really important thing to note is just how much and this is a credit to Brian Kelly and LSU, how much the picture of them has changed. They went to Atlanta last year, the SEC championship, but they had 3 regular season losses, including this game last year.
Yep.
They get blown out by Tennessee as well. And did they lose to Florida?
They might have. I think they did lose to Florida.
They lost to somebody they shouldn't have lost to. So we talked about the expectation. What if LSU goes 10-2 this year, but loses to Florida State and Bama? I'd still consider that a successful season.
Yeah, they lost to Texas A&M.
Oh, Texas A&M, okay.
And even this Florida State game, when you're thinking back from an LSU perspective, this is a game you lose because you get a point after touchdown blocked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is a game that everyone in the country thought was going into overtime. LSU was probably going to get the ball back, and we'll see where the game goes from there. But if I'm LSU, I'm angry. I want to play this Florida State team again. Yeah. I think they'll be coming for vengeance, but I think it's not going to be enough.
Yeah,
I'm taking Florida State. I don't really know what the line's set at. Is LSU a
I think
favorite?
LSU is like a 2.5 point favorite.
Money line, I'm taking that. Florida State 10 times out of 10.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a really good football game. I think we're going to see Jaden Daniels and Jordan Travis.
A masterclass.
Yeah, I think, this is an early game of the year candidate for me because I think we're about to see two QBs just light it up.
Yep.
I think Jordan Travis is the better QB.
I agree.
And I think, with that receiving core going up against, a defensive back group that has the potential to be really great, but that's the keyword, potential. I don't think you can realize that in week one. I think Florida State takes it.
I would have to agree with you.
Yeah, but it's going to be a good week of football.
5 days in
straight.
A row.
Can't wait.
Nothing better. Grass looked greener outside. Sky looked bluer this morning. Sun felt a little bit better. Yep. That's how you know football's back.
Yep. So we'll have a week 1 recap. Drop next week, and then a week 2 video. Thank you all for watching.